EndSARS, the massacre they got away with and why it's happening again. October 20th, 2020, Lekki Tollgate. Lagos young Nigerians, unarmed, peaceful, singing the national anthem and waving their flags, sat on the ground with candles. They were not rioting. They were not looting. They were simply asking their government to stop killing them. What happened next shocked the world. Nigerian soldiers opened fire on their own unarmed citizens. People died. People were wounded. The lights went out. The CCTV cameras were switched off. And the Nigerian government, to this day, has never fully accounted for what happened in that darkness. 5 years later, the soldiers who fired those shots are free. The officers who gave the orders are free. And the young Nigerians who survived, some of them, are still in prison. Tonight, the silent mentor tells the full story of EndSARS. What started it? What happened that night? What was promised? What was delivered? And why, in 2026, Nigerian youth anger is building towards something that could make October 2020 look like a rehearsal. How does a government shoot its own unarmed citizens on camera and face zero accountability 5 years later? How do the protesters who demanded justice end up in prison while the soldiers who fired at them walk free? How does a movement that brought millions of Nigerians together, young and old, North and South, Christian and Muslim, get absorbed, suppressed, and ultimately betrayed without a single promise being kept? And the question that haunts Nigeria's youth in 2026, if we marched peacefully and got shot, if we voted in 2023 and got ignored, what exactly are we supposed to do next? To understand EndSARS, you have to understand what SARS was. The Special Anti-Robbery Squad was established in 1992, originally to combat armed robbery in Lagos. By the 2010s, it had transformed into something completely different. A unit of plainclothes officers in unmarked vehicles who targeted young Nigerians, specifically the educated, the creative, and the entrepreneurial, based on nothing more than appearance. If you had a laptop, you were a suspected fraudster. If you had dreadlocks, you were a suspected criminal. If you drove a good car, you must have stolen it. If you had tattoos, you were a thug. SARS officers stopped, searched, extorted, tortured, and in documented cases, killed young Nigerians who had committed no crime except existing while young and ambitious in a country that had decided to be suspicious of its own future. The hashtag EndSARS had been circulating on Nigerian Twitter since 2017. Young Nigerians had been documenting their experiences, the extortion, the beatings, the arbitrary detention, the deaths. The government had promised reforms multiple times. Each time, nothing changed. By October 2020, the anger had been building for 3 years. And then one video of a young man allegedly killed by SARS officers in Delta State broke something open that could not be closed again. By October 2020, the EndSARS protest had spread to every major Nigerian city. Millions of young people, organized entirely through social media, without any political party or single leader, had taken to the streets in what was arguably the most significant civic moment in Nigeria's post-military history. They were peaceful. They were organized. They cleaned up after themselves. They raised funds transparently. They fed each other. They protected each other. On October 20th, the Lagos state government announced a 24-hour curfew. At Lekki Tollgate, where hundreds of young protesters had been sitting peacefully for days, the lights went out. The CCTV cameras went dark, and soldiers arrived. What happened next is disputed furiously and deliberately by the Nigerian government. Eyewitnesses, videos, and testimonies from survivors describe soldiers opening fire on the crowd. People falling, blood on the ground, bodies being moved. The DJ who had been live streaming, DJ Switch, broadcast the horror to the world in real time before her signal was cut. Amnesty International documented at least 12 deaths that night. The Lagos State Judicial Panel on the EndSARS protests, the government's own investigation, found that soldiers fired live ammunition at protesters. The Nigerian army denied it. The Lagos state government disputed the panel's findings, and no soldier has ever faced any consequence for what happened at Lekki Tollgate on October 20th, 2020. The EndSARS protesters had 5 specific demands: immediate release of all detained protesters, justice for all deceased victims and appropriate compensation for their families, independent oversight of the police, psychological evaluation of disbanded SARS officers before redeployment, increase in police salaries to encourage accountability. 5 demands, 5 years later. Let's check the scorecard. SARS was officially disbanded and replaced by SWAT, the Special Weapons and Tactics Team, which Nigerians quickly discovered was essentially SARS with a new name. 5 years after the historic EndSARS protests, the National Association of Sea Dogs called on the federal and state governments to revisit the EndSARS reform agenda with sincerity and urgency, ensuring full implementation of panel reports and recommendations, prosecution of officers indicted for human rights abuses, and transparent compensation for verified victims. 5 years later, they are still calling for it, because it still hasn't happened. A former senator, Shehu Sani, urged President Tinubu to pardon the incarcerated EndSARS protesters, many of whom were arrested during the 2020 protests and are still in prison. Still in prison. Young Nigerians who went into the streets to protest police brutality are still in Nigerian prisons in 2026, while the officers who shot at them are still on the force, still collecting salaries, still in uniform. Here's the twist. EndSARS didn't end in 2020. It evolved. In August 2024, Nigerian youth launched the EndBadGovernance protests, a Kenya-style days of rage movement triggered by Tinubu's economic policies, fuel scarcity, and the accumulated frustration of a generation that had protested in 2020, voted in 2023, and watched nothing change. The government's response was familiar. Security forces deployed, protesters arrested, government officials dismissing the movement as politically motivated. The APC Youth League claimed politicians who lost the 2023 elections were behind the protests, branding protest leaders as sore losers and masterminds of the demonstrations. Imagine art, the same playbook, the same dismissal, the same refusal to acknowledge that when millions of young people take to the streets twice in 4 years, the problem is not the protesters. The problem is what they are protesting. And now, with 2027 approaching, the anger is not decreasing, it is compounding. Every broken promise from 2020, every ignored demand, every imprisoned protester, every unchanged police behavior, every economic policy that made survival harder. Every day abroad the president spent while Nigerians suffered, all of it accumulating in the hearts of the same generation that lit candles at Lekki Tollgate, who are now 4 years older, 4 years angrier, and 4 years more certain that peaceful protest changes nothing in Nigeria. Think about the young Nigerian who was at Lekki Tollgate on October 20th, 2020, who sat peacefully with a candle and a flag, who believed with everything in them that their country could hear them if they spoke loudly enough and peacefully enough. That person is 5 years older now. They watched SARS get renamed and continue. They watched the judicial panel produce a report that was disputed and ignored. They watched their fellow protesters remain in prison. They voted in 2023, in many cases for the first time, and watched their votes disputed and overturned in court. They protested again in 2024 and were again dismissed and detained. What do you say to that person? What do you tell someone who has done everything right, protested peacefully, voted, engaged civically, and watched a system absorb every effort without changing? That is not a political question. That is a human question, and Nigeria has not answered it. And every day it goes unanswered. The answer that fills the silence becomes darker and more desperate. October 20th, 2026 will mark 6 years since Lekki. 6 years since a government turned its weapons on unarmed citizens waving Nigerian flags. 6 years of zero accountability. 6 years of broken promises. 6 years of imprisoned protesters. 6 years of renamed but unchanged police units. The National Association of Sea Dogs on the 5th anniversary said, 5 years after the nation's youth took to the streets with hope and courage, Nigeria must demonstrate that their sacrifices were not in vain. Nigeria has not demonstrated that. Not yet. The 2027 election is approaching. The same youth that powered EndSARS, the same youth that voted in record numbers in 2023, the same youth that took to the streets in August 2024. They are still here, still watching, still deciding what to do next. And the question that should keep every Nigerian politician awake at night is this: what happens when a generation that has tried everything peaceful concludes that peaceful is not working? The silent mentor, because history whispers. We listen. Subscribe now, because the next secret is the one they hope you would forget.